Imagine your mind is a garden, silent, obedient, and always growing, but here's the unsettling truth. It doesn't care if you plant seeds of success or failure. It simply grows whatever you feed it. Right now, without knowing, you might be nurturing the very things you fear. What if the invisible force shaping your life isn't luck but your own thoughts? The question is, what are you unconsciously growing? In just a few moments, I will teach how to master the powerful law. What you focus on, you attract. The invisible law, you become what you think about. I want you to imagine for just a moment that your mind is like a grand garden. This garden does not care what seeds you plant, whether they be seeds of success, hope, abundance, or seeds of doubt, fear, and failure. But mark my words, whatever you plant, it will grow. This is the invisible law that governs every man and woman. The law that says what you focus on, you attract. You see, thoughts are not idle. They are magnets. They have form, energy, and power. They shape not only how you feel, but the very circumstances of your life. You've seen it before. A man who constantly thinks about poverty talks about scarcity, believes that the world is unfair. What does he attract? Misery, lack, and more hardship. On the other hand, a person perhaps with no more talent who fills his mind with images of opportunity, abundance, and faith in himself, he attracts prosperity, support, and success seemingly out of thin air. This is no accident. This is no trick of luck. It is the natural consequence of what I call definiteness of purpose combined with definiteness of thought. You are either consciously designing your life or unconsciously accepting whatever weeds sprout in that mental garden. I recall a young man I once mentored. He was convinced he would never amount to anything because his father had told him. Day after day, he focused on failure. His head was bowed, his shoulders slumped. His conversation filled with words like, I can, is impossible, and it's too hard. One day, I told him plainly, son, if you keep watering those weeds of failure, don't expect roses to bloom. Something shifted in him that day. He began slowly but surely to replace those weeds with seeds of faith. He started each day declaring, I am capable, I am destined for more. His world changed. Not overnight, but steadily and surely. Today he is a man of influence, wealth, and peace. The lesson is simple but profound. If you wish to change your life, start by changing what occupies your thoughts. Focus on health and health finds you. Focus on opportunity and opportunity knocks. Focus on kindness and friends abound. Focus on growth and the doors to success will swing wide open. Remember, nature does not care whether you plant poison or medicine. It only returns what you sow. So ask yourself, right now, what seeds are you planting in the garden of your mind? The mirror of belief. You will never outperform your self-image. Listen closely. No man ever rises above the image he holds of himself. Not once, not ever. You may labor harder than anyone in the room. You may possess the finest education, the most enviable skills, but if the image you hold of yourself is small, if you see yourself as unworthy, incapable, or unlucky, then life will forever deliver results that match that image. I've sat across from men whose voices trembled as they confessed, Mr. Hill, I just don't believe I am destined for success. And I always told them the same thing. That belief alone is the first and greatest obstacle you must conquer. Understand this. Your subconscious mind accepts every thought, every word, every belief you feed it as truth. Whether it uplifts or destroys you, it does not argue, it does not reason. It simply accepts, then sets to work, making that belief real. Think of a man who believes himself to be unlucky. He walks with his head down, failing to see the open doors around him. He hesitates, doubting his decisions. His handshake lacks firmness. His speech lacks conviction. Is it any wonder that opportunities pass him by? His belief becomes his reality. But let me share a story of transformation. There was once a humble shoe clerk, timid, unsure, overlooked by everyone. One day he made a decision. He declared, I will become a man of influence. I will become a leader of men. Each day he fed his mind with affirmations of strength, capability, and faith. Over months and years, his posture changed, his voice deepened, his handshake grew firmer. Today, that man commands respect, runs his own enterprise, and is sought after for his wisdom. You see, the outer world is nothing but a mirror. It reflects back the beliefs you hold about yourself. If you believe you are meant for greatness, the world conspires to help you achieve it. If you believe you are doomed to failure, the world obliges. So I challenge you, look in the mirror. Who do you see? More importantly, who have you decided to become? Change that inner image, and I promise you, everything on the outside will change as well. The power of definite goals. Focus creates fortune. A ship without a rudder is tossed by every wind. A man without a goal drifts the very same way, at the mercy of circumstance, luck, and the opinions of others. Nothing, and I mean nothing, will determine the quality of your life more than the goals you set. When your mind is given a definite destination, it becomes a magnet for the resources, the people, the ideas, and the opportunities necessary to achieve it. This is the invisible hand of focus at work. I have sat in rooms with the wealthiest industrialists of our time, and do you know the one common thread among them? They knew exactly what they wanted. Not vaguely, not someday, precisely. Clearly, unwaveringly. A man once came to me complaining of never catching a break. I asked him, "What exactly do you want?" He hesitated, he stumbled, he replied, "Well, I just want to be better off." I shook my head. The world does not respond to vague wishes. It responds to definite plans. You see, your mind is like a heat-seeking missile. When you give it a precise target, it adjusts, calculates, and hones in with laser-like focus. Distractions fade, doubt weakens. The path becomes clear. Let me tell you the story of Andrew Carnegie, the great steel magnate. Carnegie started with nothing, but from a young age, he carried a singular goal to become the richest man in the world. Not for greed, but to demonstrate the power of intention and then use that wealth for the betterment of mankind. And so he did. His focus was relentless. He wrote it down. He reviewed it daily. He aligned every thought, every action with that goal until it was reality. The lesson: if you wish to become successful, wealthy, or fulfilled, you must first be definite about what that looks like. A vague wish produces vague results. A precise goal produces a precise outcome. Write it down. Repeat it daily. Burn it into your mind until your very soul believes it. Focus creates fortune. Always has, always will. The unshakable power of faith, belief, unlocks the door. I must impress upon you a truth that has stood the test of time. Faith is the starting point of all achievement. Without it, no plan can succeed. With it, no obstacle is insurmountable. Faith is not merely wishing. It is not idle hope. Faith is a deep, unwavering conviction that what you desire is not only possible, it is inevitable. It is the inner certainty that calls unseen forces into motion. I have watched men of modest beginnings rise to astonishing heights, not because they had more talent or resources, but because they possessed a fire of faith that no setback could extinguish. There was once a man, a poor farmer's son, who dreamt of becoming a great speaker. His peers laughed. His teacher scoffed. He had no connections, no fortune, but every morning he stood before his mirror and declared with conviction, "I am a speaker. I am a leader of men." He practiced, he persevered, years passed, and today his words moved nations. Why? Because his faith never wavered. Faith turns obstacles into stepping stones. Where the fearful see failure, the faithful see opportunity. And here's the great secret. Faith must be practiced daily. It is not something you have once and for all. It is a discipline, a muscle that grows with use. Every time you affirm your goal, every time you visualize its completion, every time you speak as though it is already yours, you are strengthening the mighty force of faith, and that, my friend, makes you unstoppable. The power of persistence. Refuse to quit and you cannot be defeated. There is a simple rule that governs success more than talent, more than luck, more than education, and it is this: the man who refuses to quit cannot be defeated. Persistence is the master key that unlocks every door. Show me a man who has achieved greatness, and I will show you a man who has tasted failure, disappointment, and rejection, yet rose each time with greater determination. I remember vividly the story of Colonel Sanders. At the age when most men retire, he carried a recipe for fried chicken and an idea. He traveled door to door, facing rejection over 1,000 times. 1,000, but he persisted, and eventually someone said yes. That small yes grew into an empire. Why? Because he simply refused to quit. Persistence does not mean blind stubbornness. It means adjusting your sails, refining your methods, but never surrendering the goal. It is the quiet whisper that says, try again, even when the world says give up. Life will test you. It will ask, do you truly want what you claim to desire? It tests not to punish, but to strengthen, to separate the committed from the merely interested. When you persist, unseen forces begin to work in your favor. Doors that were once closed swing open. People who once ignored you become allies. Opportunities that seemed impossible reveal themselves. So I say to you, be relentless. Be unyielding. For the man who persists holds in his hands the power to shape destiny itself. The mastery of discipline, the silent architect of success. Let me be clear about something most men overlook. Discipline is the bridge between thought and accomplishment. Without it, even the finest plans remain idle dreams. Discipline is not a punishment, but rather the greatest gift you can give yourself. The silent architect that shapes your future. A man may desire wealth, health, happiness, but desire alone is nothing without the discipline to act upon it. I have met many whose minds were filled with grand ideas. Men who spoke of ambitions to become scholars, inventors, leaders, but who lacked the daily discipline to follow through. These men were forever stuck in the realm of someday. Discipline is simple in theory, but mighty in practice. It is the ability to do what must be done, whether you feel like it or not. It is the quiet voice that says rise before dawn when the body begs for more rest. It is the steady hand that reaches for the book instead of the bottle. It is choosing the hard right over the easy wrong. I once knew a man named Samuel. Samuel was born into hardship. Every odd was stacked against him. But Samuel had one advantage that none could take from him: discipline. He woke before the sun, studied his craft, saved his earnings, treated his body as a temple, and spoke only of possibilities. Over time, his discipline turned into mastery, and mastery into prosperity. Samuel's wealth was not the result of one grand event, but of 10,000 small decisions made with discipline. Discipline, my friend, compounds. Each day you practice it, it grows stronger. Like a muscle, it may be weak at first, but through repetition, it becomes unbreakable. The man who disciplines his mind controls his destiny. The man who neglects discipline is forever at the mercy of circumstance. There will always be temptations. The easy path, the shortcut, the distraction, the world whispers rest a little, delay a while. Give up, but the disciplined man answers back, not today. My future demands more of me. So I ask you, what small act of discipline can you begin today? Perhaps it is committing to rise at the same hour. Perhaps it is setting aside a portion of your earnings. Perhaps it is choosing your words with care, speaking only of what you intend to create. Know this: discipline is freedom. It frees you from chaos, from regret, from the empty life of those who drift. When you master yourself, you master your fate. The unseen power of environment. Who you surround yourself with shapes you. Let me share with you a truth as old as time itself. A man becomes the average of the 5 people he spends the most time with. Your environment is not neutral. It is either lifting you up or pulling you down. If you surround yourself with men who speak of opportunity, who focus on solutions, who pursue growth, you cannot help but rise to meet that level. But if you surround yourself with doubters, With those who mock ambition, who wallow in complaint, you will slowly, almost imperceptibly, become just like them. I remember visiting a small town during my early years of study. There I met two brothers, identical in birth, but opposite in fortune. One had become a prosperous merchant, the other, a bitter drunkard. Curious, I asked them separately about their lives. The prosperous brother said, "I chose to spend my days among men who discussed ideas, trade, philosophy, and wealth. The other side, I simply fell in with those who passed the time complaining about what the world owed them." There is no mystery here. Birds of a feather flock together. The conversations you engage in, the habits you witness daily, the standards of those around you, all become your own over time. A weak environment drains your energy, infects your thinking, and normalizes mediocrity. But a strong environment inspires, challenges, and demands your growth. This does not mean you must abandon everyone you know. But it does mean you must choose carefully who influences your thoughts. Seek out mentors. Engage with men and women whose lives represent what you wish to achieve. Frequent places where ambition is respected, where integrity is upheld, and where excellence is expected. The greatest fortunes were not built alone. Behind every successful man is a mastermind group. A circle of individuals committed to lifting each other higher. They exchange ideas, hold one another accountable, and sharpen each other as iron, sharp, and Zion. So reflect deeply. Who do you dine with? Who do you confide in? What conversations dominate your evenings? Are these voices building you or quietly destroying you? Surround yourself with greatness, and greatness becomes inevitable. The resilience factor. Turn adversity into advantage. Adversity is the one companion in life that never discriminates. It does not concern itself with wealth, status, age, or privilege. It arrives uninvited to all, whether you are a king or a beggar, a seasoned elder or a bright-eyed youth. But the difference between those who rise to greatness and those who fall into despair is not determined by the adversity itself. Rather, it is defined by how one responds to the inevitable storms that life sends their way. Some are crushed under its weight, while others transform that very burden into the fuel that propels them toward success. Resilience is the invisible armor that allows individuals to endure, recover, and even flourish in the face of hardship. It is not merely about surviving. It is about learning to thrive despite the odds. It is that quiet voice in the darkest moments that whispers, "This too shall pass." It does not scream nor boast, but it remains steady and unwavering, even as chaos swirls around. Those who possess it understand that hardship is not the end, but often the beginning of something far greater. A story comes to mind, one that continues to inspire countless dreamers. The story of a young inventor named Thomas. One cruel night, fire consumed his factory, reducing his life's work to nothing more than smoldering rubble. Years of relentless labor, sweat and dreams turned into ash in mere hours. Any ordinary man would have found it justifiable to collapse under the weight of such loss, to curse fate, or to simply walk away defeated, but Thomas was no ordinary man. As the morning sun rose over the charred remains and smoke still curled into the sky, he stood firm, gazed upon the ruins and declared, "Now I can begin again, free of the mistakes of the past." True to his words, within a year he rebuilt his enterprise from the ground up, stronger, smarter, and more successful than ever before. His triumph was not in avoiding failure, but in rising magnificently from it. This is the essence of resilience. It is not a trait gifted to a select few at birth, but a skill, an inner strength that is cultivated and honed through experience. Each trial becomes the forge in which resilience is tempered. Every time one chooses to rise rather than surrender, that inner steel grows thicker, tougher, and more unbreakable. With every disappointment, there is an opportunity not to shrink but to expand, to become more than you were yesterday. The truth remains unchanging. Obstacles in life are not barriers meant to halt progress. They are the chisels that shape us into the people capable of handling the rewards we seek. Without resistance, there is no growth, just as the mighty oak grows strong, not in the calm, but because of the relentless wind that tests it. So too does the human spirit gain strength through life's temper. The river does not carve deep valleys through brute force, but through persistent, patient resilience over time. Nature itself mirrors this principle, teaching us that endurance leads to greatness. When adversity stands before you, the question must shift. No longer should one lament, "Why is this happening to me?" but instead ponder, what lesson does this hold? How is this refining me for something greater that lies ahead? Hardship is a harsh but honest teacher. It reveals hidden reservoirs of strength within us. Strength we may never have known existed had everything gone smoothly. It forces us to innovate when the familiar path is destroyed. It demands that we grow, adapt, and rise. Therefore, when the inevitable storm arrives at your doorstep, do not shrink. Do not let fear govern your next step. Stand tall. Lift your head. Greet it with the quiet confidence of someone who knows that resilience is the most powerful tool ever wielded by the hands of those who achieve greatness. And when you embrace it fully, you become in every sense of the word unstoppable. The fire of passion, fuel for an extraordinary life. If there is one undeniable force that separates those who are merely successful from those who rise to become truly extraordinary, it is passion. Passion is the invisible current that breathes life into effort, transforming tedious labor into joyful creation, turning obstacles into opportunities, and elevating ordinary men and women into timeless legends. Without passion, success feels hollow, a victory that tastes like ash. But with passion, every endeavor becomes meaningful. Every day becomes a journey filled with purpose, and life itself takes on a vibrancy that cannot be faked or manufactured. Passion is not a luxury reserved for the lucky few who happen to stumble upon. It is in truth an absolute necessity for anyone who desires a life of depth, fulfillment, and lasting impact. Without it, the routines of daily existence become nothing more than mechanical repetition. A monotonous march from one paycheck to the next, from sunrise to sunset, absent of spark or significance. But introduce passion into that same routine and everything changes. Suddenly waking up feels like answering a call to adventure. Every task, no matter how small or seemingly mundane, becomes infused with meaning. It becomes a brushstroke in the masterpiece of your life's work. Throughout my years, I have had the privilege of speaking with titans of industry, world-renowned artists, inventors whose contributions have transformed entire industries, and thinkers whose ideas have shifted the very fabric of society. Regardless of their profession or their background, they all spoke of the same force that propelled them forward. A fire within. It wasn't merely about financial gain, fame, or recognition. No, their driving force was something far more profound. The desire to create, to contribute, to leave behind something that mattered. Their work was not simply a means to an end. It was an expression of their very soul. I vividly recall a conversation with a man named Henry, a humble craftsman whose hands shaped wood into objects of exquisite beauty. His shop was modest, tucked away on a quiet street, but his creations were sought after by the finest clientele from across the country. When I asked him what kept him going through the long hours and the painstaking precision his craft demanded, he smiled and said, "I could no more stop building than I could stop breathing." It wasn't the money that fueled him, though it came in abundance as a result of his dedication, but the sheer joy of creation, the satisfaction of bringing something into existence that just yesterday existed only in his imagination. That is passion in its purest form. Passion is a force that does not merely benefit the one who holds it. It is contagious. It radiates outward, drawing others in, inspiring them, lifting their spirits, and setting in motion a momentum that no obstacle can easily derail. It has the uncanny ability to turn seemingly insurmountable roadblocks into manageable challenges. Where others see dead ends, the passionate see detours, lessons, and new possibilities. But passion is not something that sustains itself without effort. Like a fire, it requires constant tending. It must be fed with curiosity, with learning, with the pursuit of mastery. It thrives on challenges that stretch the limits of your abilities and withers in the presence of complacency, negativity, and the soul-suffocating trap of settling for good enough. If you allow doubt to linger, if you permit the mundane to choke out your curiosity, the flame grows dim, and the once vibrant joy of doing your life's work begins to fade. The question then becomes one of profound importance. What stirs your soul? What is the work, the craft, the pursuit that you would gladly give yourself to? Even if no one ever paid you a single cent, when you move toward that answer, something extraordinary happens. Energy multiplies. Time seems to bend, with hours slipping away unnoticed, because you are so fully immersed in what you love. Opportunities appear sometimes in the most unexpected ways, as if the universe itself conspires to support those who dare to follow their passion. Always remember this undeniable truth. The greatest tragedy is not in failure. Failure, after all, is but a stepping stone on the path to growth. No, the true tragedy is to succeed, perhaps even by the world's standards, but to do so without passion. To wake each day to a life that looks successful on the outside, but feels hollow within, is the most painful fate of all. So live fully. Seek the work that makes your spirit catch fire. Feed that fire with everything you have, and let it guide your days, your choices, and your legacy. For a life led by passion is not only a life well lived, it is a life that leaves the world forever changed. The master key. Gratitude unlocks the door to abundance. If there is one secret so powerful that it magnifies every other principle of success, it is gratitude. Yes, simple, profound, unwavering gratitude. Gratitude is not merely the polite act of saying thank you when someone does you a favor. It is far more than manners or courtesy. It is a state of being, a way of seeing the world that fundamentally transforms every experience you have. It is a lens that shifts how you interpret your life, your circumstances, and your possibilities. When a man lives in gratitude, the world opens up to him in ways others cannot comprehend. Where most see obstacles, he sees opportunities. Where others notice what is lacking, he recognizes what is already abundant. I remember once meeting a wealthy landowner, whose fortune stretched as far as the horizon. His lands were vast, his wealth undeniable. On the surface, anyone would envy his position, yet there was no joy in his eyes. His words were soaked with bitterness as he complained endlessly about the burdens of taxes, the unreliability of his labors, the unpredictability of the weather, and the frustrations of managing his sprawling estate. Despite all he possessed, he walked through life feeling as though something was perpetually being taken from him, as if the world owed him more. In the very same town lived an old shoemaker, whose circumstances were modest at best. His workshop was small, his income humble, and yet he radiated a kind of joy that was impossible to ignore. I once asked him, intrigued by his cheerful nature, "How is it that you are so content with so little?" His face broke into a warm smile, and with a calm voice, he said, "Every day I wake and give thanks. For the strength in my hands that allows me to work, for the love of my family that fills my home, and for the work itself that puts food on our table. I may not have much by the world's measure, but my heart is full." It was then that I realized something profound. The shoemaker, though lacking in material wealth, was the richer man by far, richer in spirit, richer in joy, richer in the currency that truly matters in life. His days were not burdened with the knowing hunger of dissatisfaction. Instead, they were filled with a quiet, resilient happiness that no amount of gold could ever buy. This is the transformative power of gratitude. It shifts your focus from scarcity to abundance. It tunes your heart away from what you lack and toward the wealth that already exists within your life, whether that wealth is found in relationships, health, opportunity, or the simple gift of being alive. Gratitude is not denial of hardship. It does not ignore pain or difficulty. Rather, it acknowledges them while still choosing to focus on what is good, what is right, and what is possible. What many do not realize is that gratitude has a tangible, almost mystical ability to attract more of what you appreciate. It aligns your mindset with the natural laws of prosperity. When you are grateful, your mind opens to solutions. You become more creative, more resilient. You draw goodwill from others because people are naturally drawn to those who radiate positivity and appreciation. Gratitude silences the insidious voices of fear and doubt. The two cannot coexist. It is impossible to be both deeply fearful and truly grateful at the same time. One always drives the other out. Imagine beginning each day with gratitude, not for perfection, but for the simple, irreplaceable gifts that life has already granted you. The air in your lungs, the strength of your body, the clarity of your mind, the opportunity, however small, to take one more step forward today. And then imagine ending each day the same way, giving thanks for the lessons you've gathered, the progress you've made, the laughter shared, even the challenges that, though uncomfortable, are shaping you into someone stronger, wiser, and more capable. This simple practice changes everything. Gratitude multiplies the good. It acts like a magnet for more of what you appreciate. When you tune your spirit to recognize abundance, you send a signal not only to the world, but to your own subconscious that you are ready for more. More growth, more opportunity, more success. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, where the act of appreciating what you have makes room for even greater things to arrive. Far too often people chase success under the illusion that achieving more money, more possessions, more accolades will finally make them feel grateful. But they have it backward. Gratitude is not the result of success. Gratitude is the foundation of it. It is the soil from which every other victory grows. Without it, even the greatest successes feel hollow, brittle, and incomplete. With it, even the smallest wins feel monumental, and the journey itself becomes a joy. So let gratitude be your constant companion. Let it guide your thoughts, shape your choices, and fill your days. For a grateful heart is the key that unlocks not only happiness, but a life of true abundance. A life where success is measured not just by what you have, but by how deeply you cherish it. The creative force of imagination where success begins. There exists some mighty power within every human being. Often dismissed, frequently underestimated, yet it has silently shaped every fortune, every invention, every towering empire the world has ever known. That power, my friend, is imagination. It is not some idle fancy, nor is it the childish daydreaming most believe it to be. Imagination is the sacred workshop of the mind, the invisible forge where ideas are molded into form, where visions are clothed in substance, and where the intangible becomes tangible before a single stone was laid, before a single nail was driven, every bridge that spans a mighty river, every soaring skyscraper that touches the clouds, every world-changing enterprise existed first, not in wood or steel or concrete, but within the boundless territory of a man's imagination. There was once a young man bound to the dull routine of a clerical job, surrounded by co-workers who had surrendered to mediocrity. While they passed the hours in idle gossip, complaints, and mindless distractions, he sat quietly with a humble notebook in his hands. On those pages he sketched plans for a machine that had yet to exist in the real world. A contraption born purely from his vision, his conviction, and the power of his imagination. His peers mocked him, dismissing him as a fool chasing fantasies. They could not comprehend what his mind could see so clearly. They lacked the ability to look beyond what was and imagine what could be. But the young man remained steadfast. Years passed, and though the mockery did not cease, neither did he. He refined his sketches, adjusted his designs, persisted through setbacks and doubts, and in time, the machine he envisioned not only came to life, but revolutionized an entire industry. His fortune followed, as did the respect of those who once doubted him. This is the nature of imagination. The world, as it stands today, belongs not to those who passively accept it, but to those who dared to envision how it could be. Everything you see, the cities, the businesses, the technologies, the art, the music, all of it began as a whisper in someone's mind. A fragile seed of thought nurtured until it broke through into reality. Understand this truth. Your imagination is your personal preview of life's coming attractions. But there is a warning to be heeded. Imagination must be directed. A mind left to wander aimlessly becomes ensnared in idle fantasy, distraction, and wasted potential. An uncontrolled imagination drifts like a rudderless ship, offering nothing but illusions. But when imagination is harnessed, guided by definite purpose, Strengthened by clear intention and fueled by burning desire, it becomes the architect of success. It becomes a tool so powerful that it can reshape destinies. Every man must cultivate two distinct forms of imagination. The first is synthetic imagination. This is the ability to take existing concepts, ideas, or methods and reorganize them into new practical combinations. Most innovation, problem-solving, and business improvements come from this type of thinking. It's what allows someone to look at what already exists and ask, how can this be done better, faster, more efficiently? The second, more elusive form is creative imagination. This is the spark of genius. The rare ability to tap into something greater than oneself, into infinite intelligence. Creative imagination is where sudden breakthroughs occur, where answers arrive as if whispered from the ether. It is the origin of those brilliant ideas that seem to materialize out of nowhere in moments of stillness, inspiration, or deep focus. But how does one sharpen this magnificent faculty? The answer is both simple and profound. Feed your mind endlessly. Study relentlessly. Read, observe. Question the ordinary. Make it your habit to constantly ask, what could be improved here? What opportunity lies hidden beneath what everyone else ignores? Take deliberate time each day for quiet reflection. Sit in solitude or take long wander through the corridors of possibility. In those quiet moments, your imagination begins its finest work. Consider Thomas Edison, a man whose very name has become synonymous with invention. His genius was not merely technical prowess. It was the mastery of imagination. When asked how he created the electric light, his answer was disarmingly simple, yet profoundly instructive. I imagined it first. Then I found a way to make it real. This is the formula, laid bare. All achievement, all progress, all advancement, first occurs in the realm of thought before it ever takes form in the world. Recognize then the pivotal role imagination plays. It is the springboard from which every success must leap. If you nurture it, guide it, and wield it with discipline, there is no limit to what you can create. But if you neglect it, if you let it atrophy, if you allow the noise of the world to drown out your inner vision, you resign yourself to living not a life of your own design, but one shaped by the imaginations of others. You become a character in someone else's story, rather than the author of your own. So ask yourself now with sincerity and courage, what vision have I allowed to wither in the shadows of doubt? What bold possibility awaits my attention? Dust it off, bring it back into the light, nurture it as you would a precious seed, because imagination is not mere fantasy. It is the first indispensable step toward reality. What you dare to imagine today, you may well hold in your hands tomorrow. The silent builder, habits create your destiny. When you look closely at any man who has achieved something truly remarkable, you will discover that his success did not spring from a single dramatic act, nor was it the product of luck or mere chance. Instead, it was born from the quiet, often invisible sum of small actions, repeated day after day. These are what we call habits, the silent, steady builders of destiny. They work quietly in the background, shaping the trajectory of a man's life far more powerfully than any single burst of effort ever could. A man does not wake up one morning and suddenly find himself wealthy, wise, disciplined, or deeply respected. Just as surely a man does not suddenly collapse into failure to spare a ruin. In a single day, both outcomes, whether triumphant or tragic, are the inevitable result of thousands of small decisions, seemingly minor choices, and unconscious patterns, repeated over months and years. These patterns, whether beneficial or destructive, ultimately become the architecture of a man's life. I recall vividly the story of a man named Henry, a simple clerk who worked an unremarkable job in a small office. To anyone passing by, Henry lived an ordinary life indistinguishable from any of his colleagues. But Henry possessed a private discipline, a small but mighty habit that set him apart. Each evening, when his day's work was done and others retreated to idle distractions, whether it was gossip, games, or mere complaints about the monotony of life, Henry chose differently. He sat quietly with a stack of books on finance, economics, and business strategy. Night after night, he studied, reflected, and absorbed knowledge that would quietly accumulate within him like compound interest. For years, no one noticed his private effort. There were no immediate rewards, no applause, no sudden transformation. But habits are patient. They demand consistency, but require no recognition. Then one day, as often happens in life, opportunity appeared. A small business came up for sale. While others saw only risk or dismissed it entirely, Henry, armed with years of knowledge and prepared by his habits, recognized its potential. He seized the opportunity with quiet confidence. Today, Henry is the owner of a thriving enterprise, respected in his community and admired for his success. To the outside world, it might have seemed sudden. To Henry, it was simply the natural harvest of seeds planted long ago. Good habits are the most faithful servants a man can possess. Once established, they work tirelessly on your behalf, requiring no constant supervision. They become automatic allies in your pursuit of success. Wake early and you gain hours others sleep away. Save consistently and wealth grows silently in the background. Speak kindly and goodwill accumulates in every relationship. Seek knowledge daily and wisdom compounds in your mind. These habits quietly erect a fortress of success around you, unseen but unshakable. Yet it is vital to remember that the same law governs poor habits, just as good habits build. Bad habits destroy, with equal patience and certainty. Neglect is a habit, delay is a habit. Gossip, complaint, wastefulness, these too are habits. At first, their impact seems trivial, almost invisible, but left unchecked, they slowly corrode potential. They gnaw at your strength, sap your confidence, and blur your focus until one day you awaken, trapped inside a life you did not consciously choose. A life built not by intention, but by neglect. Perhaps the greatest tragedy is that most men inherit their habits by default. They unconsciously adopt the patterns of their parents, their neighborhood, their friends, or the general mood of the society around them. They never stop to ask, is this habit serving me? Is it moving me toward the life I want? Or is it quietly leading me away from it? Without this examination, they become prisoners of routines they never deliberately chose. The formula for mastery, however, is both simple and profoundly powerful. Choose one small habit, just one, that if practiced daily would move you even a fraction closer to your desired future. Commit to it without exception. Let it become as natural to you as breathing, and when it becomes embedded in your nature, choose another. Then another, layer by layer. You are not merely changing your behavior, you are reshaping your very identity. In time, your habits harden into character, your character becomes your nature, and your nature shapes your destiny. The man who habitually learns becomes wise. The man who habitually saves becomes wealthy. The man who habitually speaks with kindness earns love and respect. What you do occasionally shapes moments. What you do habitually shapes your entire life. Remember this truth always. Success is not something you do. It is something you become, and you become it through the daily, quiet, repeated practices that align with your purpose. Success is not the product of willpower deployed in bursts, but of habits sustained over time. So look closely at the architecture of your own day. What habits govern your mornings, your evenings, the spaces in between? Are they worthy of the future you claim to desire? If they are not, then change them. Not tomorrow. Not when life feels convenient. Change them now in this very moment. For in the end, no man rises to the level of his ambitions. He falls to the level of his habits. The power of decision. Indecision breeds failure. If there is one trait that stands as the invisible line dividing the successful from the unsuccessful, it is this, the ability to decide. Not merely to choose when the path is clear and the risk is gone, but to choose in the face of uncertainty, to step forward when the outcome is unknown, and to commit when others stand frozen in hesitation. Life, whether we acknowledge it or not, is an endless procession of crossroads. Some are small, barely noticeable in the moment. Others loom large, their consequences stretching far into the future. But each day presents these forks in the road, and it is the man who acts, who chooses his direction with clarity and resolve, who inevitably commands his destiny. The man who hesitates, who waits endlessly for certainty, who demands that every variable be accounted for before he moves, soon discovers that opportunity does not linger. It is a fleeting guest, knocking briefly before moving on to the next door. How many lives have been spent standing at that threshold, paralyzed by the weight of what if? How many fortunes never made? How many dreams never realized because a man could not decide? Over the years, I have studied the greatest man of my generation, names like Carnegie, Rockefeller, Ford, and without exception, one habit united them all. They made decisions swiftly. Their resolve was not born from recklessness, but from a deep understanding that life rewards the bold. They were deliberate, yes, but never sluggish. Once their minds were made, they did not retreat into doubt. They rarely reversed course without significant cause. In contrast, the unsuccessful, those left grasping at the edges of opportunity, displayed the opposite tendency. They moved slowly, weighed options endlessly, and even when they finally committed, they second-guessed themselves at every turn, often undoing their own progress before it could bear fruit. I once knew a gentleman whose intellect was nothing short of brilliant. His insights were profound, his grasp of business sharper than most, but he was forever trapped in a prison of analysis. He would study every opportunity from every conceivable angle. Should he start the business? Should he buy the property? Should he accept the partnership? While he pondered, while he circled his thoughts like a man pacing a cage, others, perhaps less educated, perhaps less naturally gifted, stepped forward, acted, stumbled, corrected, and prospered. His tragedy was not a lack of ability, but a lack of decision. His potential was never defeated by failure, it was suffocated by inaction. Understand this well. Indecision is not a harmless delay. It is, in truth, a quiet and insidious form of fear. It is the disguised whisper of doubt that says, "What if I choose wrong? What if I fail?" And yet what men so often fail to realize is that the refusal to decide is itself a decision to surrender the steering wheel of life to chance, to circumstance, to the will of others. And failure to act is more often than not the surest and most consistent path to failure itself. There is a mysterious truth that becomes apparent to any man bold enough to test it. When you decide, truly decide, forces beyond your immediate sight begin to shift. Circumstances reorganize. Resources appear. People you could not have predicted enter your path. The universe itself, it seems, respects the man of decision. For nature favors movement. Nature rewards action. The question then arises, how does one develop this decisive power, this strength of will that separates the actor from the observer? The answer lies in practice, as with any great skill begin with the small. Decide what time you will rise each morning and then rise at that time, no matter how you feel. Decide what knowledge you will pursue, select a book and finish it, refusing to abandon it halfway. Decide who you will allow into your circle, whether they uplift or drain you, and stand by that choice. Every small decision made firmly is a weight added to the muscle of your will. Over time, that muscle grows, and soon the larger decisions, the ones that shape careers, fortunes and legacies, no longer terrify but invigorate. When the time comes to face a large decision, and it will, remember this immutable truth. No choice will ever be perfect. The man who waits for perfect conditions, who waits for every question to be answered, condemns himself to permanent waiting. Life does not reward those who demand certainty. Progress belongs to the man who acts amidst uncertainty, who understands that course corrections are part of every journey. Even the oak tree does not wait for the sky to clear before it stretches upward. The river does not wait for someone's permission to carve its way forward. Nature moves, so must you. And so I ask you plainly, with the full weight of this truth behind the question, what decision have you delayed? What opportunity still stands knocking at your door, growing fainter with each passing day? How long will you let doubt rob you of time, of potential, of the life that could be yours if only you had the courage to choose? Know this, indecision is the thief of time and the graveyard of dreams. It is the slow, suffocating death of potential. The cure is simple, though not always easy. Decide now, not tomorrow, not when the conditions are perfect. And having decided, act, and watch the world reshape itself around the power of your will. The mastermind principle, the power of collective genius. No man, no matter how gifted, intelligent, or ambitious, achieves great success entirely alone. Behind every fortune, behind every groundbreaking invention, behind every empire built from nothing, there stands an invisible force. A mastermind. It is the coming together of minds in harmony, working toward a shared purpose that generates a power far greater than any single individual could summon on his own. This principle, the mastermind principle, is not just a theory, but a universal law of achievement, as real and as powerful as gravity or electricity. The essence of the mastermind is this: when two or more minds join in a spirit of perfect harmony and definite purpose, and invisible, intangible forces created, a third mind, greater than the sum of its parts. It is as if the universe itself responds to this alignment, producing a flow of ideas, energy, courage, and inspiration that could never have emerged from one person working in isolation. This is not just about conversation or collaboration in the ordinary sense. This is something more profound, more spiritual. It is the creation of an unseen intelligence, a collective consciousness that channels solutions, sparks creativity, and fortifies each member against the inevitable challenges of any great endeavor. I witnessed this phenomenon repeatedly as I studied the most successful men of my generation. Consider Henry Ford and Thomas Edison. These men, both giants in their respective fields, understood the power of the mastermind instinctively. They often gathered, not to waste time in idle social chatter, but to exchange ideas, challenge one another's assumptions, and sharpen the clarity of their respective visions. The problems that would have crushed a lone individual became manageable, even simple when dissected under the combined intellect and energy of their united minds. What emerged from their meetings were not just incremental improvements, but quantum leaps, solutions and breakthroughs that propelled industries forward and changed the course of history. But the power of the mastermind extends beyond mere strategy sessions or problem-solving meetings. There is something almost mystical at play. When minds are perfectly aligned, focused on a definite goal, a current of creative energy flows as if summoned from some higher source. Courage is no longer a fragile personal commodity, but an abundant shared resource. Where one man might have faltered under doubt, the collective faith of the mastermind group lifts him up where a solitary thinker might have reached a dead end. The sparks of insight generated within the group ignite new paths forward, illuminating opportunities that previously lay hidden. Yet it is crucial to understand that not all gatherings of people qualify as a true mastermind. There is a danger here as well. The principle works both ways. If you surround yourself with the wrong influences, complainers, cynics, gossips, or doubters, the force generated is not one of progress but of decay. Instead of producing clarity, it breeds confusion. Instead of encouraging bold action, it feeds fear and hesitation. Instead of building each member up, it drags them down into the mediocrity of the masses. Harmony is the essential ingredient. Without trust, mutual respect, and a shared purpose, no true mastermind can exist. Discord, jealousy, or hidden agendas poison the energy of the group, turning what could have been a force for greatness into a cesspool of wasted potential. This is why every man who desires to climb beyond the limits of solitary effort must ask himself with brutal honesty: who sits at my table of counsel? Are these individuals men of integrity, vision, and determination? Do they uplift me? Do they hold me to a higher standard? Do they challenge me to grow, to refine my thinking, to stretch beyond what I believe possible? Or are they subtle anchors, quietly weighing me down with their doubts, their fears, their small-mindedness? To form a true mastermind, one must be deliberate. Seek out those whose strengths complement your own. Perhaps one brings financial acumen, another strategic thinking, another deep expertise in craftsmanship, another mastery of communication. The goal is not to gather clones of yourself, but rather to build a coalition of diverse minds, each contributing their unique perspective toward a shared, clearly defined goal. Meet regularly. These gatherings are not casual social events, but sacred assemblies devoted to growth, progress, and accountability. Share openly without fear or ego. The walls of pride must fall if the collective mind is to rise. Encourage one another. Yes, but also challenge one another. Hold each member accountable not only to their commitments, but to the highest vision of what they can become. I can say without hesitation that the insights I share, the principles I teach, were not born solely of solitary reflection. They were forged, refined, and clarified through countless hours spent within mastermind groups made up of the greatest minds of my era. It is no exaggeration to say that my success and the success of every towering figure I have studied owes as much to the collective power of the mastermind as to any individual effort. No matter how intelligent, talented, or driven you may be, your potential is limited when you act alone. But when you align your mind with others in harmony, focused on a definite purpose, your potential does not merely add, it multiplies. Obstacles shrink, solutions multiply, energy expands. Together, men become mighty in a way that no man can achieve in isolation. So never underestimate the power of the mastermind. It is not a luxury for the fortunate few. It is a necessity for anyone who seeks to do more than simply exist. It is the key that unlocks the vault of collective genius. It is the lever that moves mountains. And when harnessed with integrity, faith, and harmony, it becomes the most powerful force available to any man who dares to dream of greatness. The golden rule of persistence and faith: what you expect, you receive. There is one final truth, one last secret that holds the key to unlocking everything else I have shared with you. It is a truth so simple that most dismiss it, and yet so powerful that it quietly governs the outcomes of every life. That truth is this: life does not deliver to you what you wish for. It delivers what you expect. Wishes are weak, fleeting, and often idle. They are the silent hopes whispered when no one is listening. But expectation, that is a force. Expectation is an active command issued to the world. A declaration written into the very fabric of your reality. It is expectation, not mere wishing, that life responds to. Faith and expectation are like twin engines that propel a man forward. Where faith exists, expectation follows. Where doubt resides, negative expectation takes root. If you move through this world expecting failure, betrayal, disappointment, and hardship, life, unmoved by your complaints, will simply oblige. It will reflect back to you the very energy you project. Doors will close, opportunities will vanish. Circumstances will conspire against you because you have already rehearsed failure in your mind. And the universe, like a faithful servant, rushes to fulfill that vision. But if you walk in faith with your head held high and your spirit aligned, with the belief that good is coming, that success is near, that opportunity is already waiting for you, then life answers differently. Suddenly the right people appear. Ideas come to you seemingly out of nowhere. Obstacles dissolve or reveal hidden pathways through them. Success, like a loyal companion, follows closely at your heels. This is not mere superstition. It is not the wishful thinking of the naive. It is a law as absolute, as constant, as unchanging as the law of gravity. Your subconscious mind accepts your expectations as commands, without argument, without question. Whether those commands build or destroy, whether they elevate you to greatness or reduce you to mediocrity, the subconscious does not judge. It simply obeys. Plant seeds of doubt and it produces barriers. Plant seeds of belief and it yields bridges. Recall a man I once knew, a businessman whose every move was shadowed by failure. He would approach negotiations already certain they would collapse. His voice trembled with hesitation. His handshake was limp. His eyes darted nervously. His words were littered with uncertainty. Phrases like "if this works" or "I hope it goes well," signaling to the world that even he did not believe in his own success. Time and time again, his expectations of failure were fulfilled with ruthless precision. Deals fell apart, partnerships dissolved, misfortune clung to him not because he was unlucky but because he was faithful to his own belief in failure. Contrast him with another man I knew equally well. This man carried himself differently. His back was straight. His words were firm. his gaze steady in his tone filled with certainty. When he walked into a room, it was as though the very air shifted to make space for his presence. He expected success not arrogantly but confidently, as a farmer expects the harvest after planting the seed. And unsurprisingly, success seemed to trail him like a loyal dog. His ventures flourished. His conversations turned into contracts. His efforts bore fruit. Life, it seemed, was eager to match his expectation. You must understand, expectation does not merely shape the future. It shapes you. It informs every decision, influences every action and colors every interaction. Expectation changes how others see you. People are drawn to confidence as surely as they are repelled by doubt. A man who expects success carries himself in a way that commands respect, invites collaboration, and earns trust. The same man, if riddled with doubt, emits signals of weakness that even the untrained eye can spot. But the greatest influence of expectation is not outward. It is inward. It is the relentless programming of your subconscious mind. Whatever message you repeat, whether consciously or unconsciously, your mind takes as law. Expect failure and your mind will quietly sabotage your efforts to fulfill that prophecy. Expect success and it will become a diligent servant, scanning the environment for opportunities, alerting you to ideas and fueling you with energy to persist. How then does one cultivate this mighty force called positive expectation? It begins with the simplest of tools: language. Words are not mere sounds. They are the first builders of reality. Never again say "if I succeed." Say "when I succeed." Remove doubt from your speech as you would remove poison from your food. Begin each day with a quiet declaration. Not shouted, not forced, but calmly and firmly spoken. Good things are coming my way. I am prepared to receive them. I am ready for success. But let this be clear. Words alone are not enough. You must act in harmony with your expectations. A man cannot expect wealth while spending recklessly. Nor can he expect respect while speaking carelessly or behaving dishonorably. Your actions must echo your beliefs. Expectation without aligned action is empty wishing. But expectation coupled with right action is a force so unstoppable that few men ever truly test its limits. Perhaps the most profound gift of expectation is how it fuels persistence. When a man truly expects that the outcome will be good, he does not crumble at the first obstacle. He does not retreat at the first sign of resistance. He knows that setbacks are temporary, that the mountain was meant to be climbed, that the challenge was placed there not as a barrier but as a test of resolve. He does not ask, "Will I succeed?" but rather, "How soon will success arrive?" So I leave you with this final charge. Hold fast to your faith. Expect the best, not as a desperate hope, but as an unwavering certainty. Look around you, even now, and recognize that the seeds of your expectation are already taking root. Water them with your words. Nourish them with your actions. Protect them from the weeds of doubt and the pests of fear. For life is not a game of luck. It is not a lottery where the few are blessed and the many are left behind. Life is a mirror. It reflects not your wishes but your expectations. Hold to the best and the best shall surely be yours. The power of self-confidence, your inner fortress of success. Let me reveal to you one of the most formidable forces that exists in the realm of human achievement: self-confidence. It is an invisible fortress, an internal stronghold from which every form of success flows. Without it, the finest plans falter, the grandest ambitions collapse, and the most brilliant talents go unrealized. But with it, mountains move, doors swing open, and obstacles seem to dissolve before your determined gaze. Self-confidence is the bedrock upon which all greatness is built. It is important to understand that self-conscience is not arrogance. It is not boastfulness nor the loud declarations of the insecure. It does not shout nor demand attention. Rather, it is the quiet, steady, and unshakable belief that you are equal to the task before you. It is the deep inner knowing that the faculties within you, the strength of your mind, the power of your will, the resilience of your spirit, are more than sufficient to meet the challenges that life places in your path. It is neither blind optimism nor reckless pride. It is certainty grounded in discipline, effort, and the truth of your own capabilities. I have sat across from many men whose hands trembled with doubt, whose eyes darted nervously as they whispered their ambitions. Their voices carried the weight of their uncertainty. "Mr. Hill," they would ask me with a desperation that was nearly painful to witness, "how can I possibly succeed when I am plagued by so much doubt?" And my answer was always the same. Simple yet absolute. You cannot. Not until you first believe that you can. For confidence is not the result of success. It is the cause of it. Most people misunderstand this. They wait for the world to grant them confidence. They wait for the first sign of victory, the first applause, the first dollar, the first compliment, believing that these external validations will somehow ignite the belief they lack. But that is not how the world works. Confidence must come first. It is the catalyst that sets every other process into motion. Without it, the first step is never taken and the first victory is never won. How then is this mighty force built? It is not conjured from thin air, nor is it granted by luck or circumstance. It is built through small, daily victories, through the consistent act of keeping one's promises to oneself. When a man declares, "I shall rise at dawn," and he honors that commitment, he grows stronger. When he says, "I will finish this task today," and he follows through despite distractions or fatigue, a new brick is laid in the fortress of his self-belief. Every completed commitment, every disciplined act, every goal achieved, no matter how small, adds to the growing structure of confidence. Slowly but surely, it transforms a timid man into a formidable one. But beware, for the opposite is equally true. Every broken promise to oneself is a blow to the foundation of self-confidence. Each time you whisper, "I'll start tomorrow," but do not follow through, your subconscious mind takes note. Each act of procrastination, each excuse, each avoided challenge quietly erodes your belief in your own word. The mind does not forget, and over time it begins to trust you less, believing not in your power, but in your patterns of retreat. I remember the story of a young woman, almost invisible to the world around her, timid, unsure, and overlooked by society. She harbored within her a daring desire to become a great speaker, someone whose voice could move hearts and stir change. The world did not believe in her. She was not invited onto stages, nor encouraged by those around her. But instead of waiting for the world's permission, she began in solitude. Every day she practiced her speech, standing before an imaginary audience. She visualized faces leaning forward, hands clapping, hearts moved by her words. Day after day, her voice grew stronger. Her posture straightened, her belief grew. And when at last the opportunity came, she stood before 1,000 souls. Her words flowed like a river, her voice unwavering, and she moved the audience to tears and to action. She did not wait for the world to give her confidence. She forged it within herself. The formula is as simple as it is powerful. Affirm your strength, act in alignment with it, and repeat without fail. Each morning, stand before the mirror and speak to yourself not as you are, but as who you are becoming. Declare with certainty, "I am capable, I am prepared, I am destined to succeed." These are not empty words when paired with consistent action. They are the programming commands you issue to your own subconscious mind, and your mind will obey. Do not permit the voices of doubt, whether they come from the outside world or from the darker corners of your own mind, to drown out the truth of your potential. When you hold yourself as someone worthy, capable and destined for great things, the world cannot help but reflect that belief back to you. People respond to confidence with trust, with respect, with opportunity. They sense when a man believes in himself, and they are drawn to that energy. As surely as a ship is drawn to the lighthouse in the storm. Remember always, the world will treat you according to how you treat yourself. Walk with the bearing of one who expects success. Speak as one whose words carry weight. Move through your days knowing that within you resides every tool, every strength, every resource needed to fulfill the purpose that life has placed before you. Self-confident is not merely a trait. It is the foundation upon which every dream is built. Every fortune is made and every legacy is forged. And the most wonderful truth of all is that it is within your power to create it. The value of accurate thinking: guard your mind, guard your life. One of the greatest tragedies I have observed in the lives of men is the sheer carelessness with which they treat their own thinking. They drift through life accepting opinions as facts, swallowing gossip as if it were gospel, and mistaking assumptions for reality. And because of this, they construct their lives upon a foundation of sand, fragile, unstable, and doomed to collapse the moment the winds of adversity begin to blow. It is no exaggeration to say that countless ambitions have perished, not because the world was cruel, but because the men who held them failed to think clearly and accurately. Success, in its truest form, belongs not to the lucky, nor solely to the talented, but to the man who cultivates accurate thinking. This is thinking that is rooted in reality, anchored in truth, grounded in evidence, not distorted by fear, warped by superstition, or clouded by hearsay. It is the ability to distinguish between what is real and what is merely imagined, between fact and assumption, between what is probable and what is merely feared, of vividly recall. The case of a businessman who came to me trembling with anxiety. He had heard whispers of an economic downturn and, convinced of impending doom, was prepared to close his shop, dismiss his employees, and retreat into safety. His fear was palpable. But when I asked him the simplest of questions, "Have you verified this? Have you examined the numbers for yourself?" he looked at me as if the thought had never even occurred to him. And indeed, it had not. Upon investigation, it became clear that the rumors were unfounded. Far from shrinking, his market was actually expanding. His fear had been nothing more than an illusion, a phantom born of careless, unchecked thinking. This is not an isolated incident. The harsh truth is that most failures in life are not the result of actual obstacles, but of faulty thinking. False assumptions, unexamined fears, and baseless conclusions destroy more dreams than all the external difficulties the world could ever conjure. A man imagines that he cannot succeed in a certain field because others have told him it's too competitive, never once questioning whether those others ever truly tried. Another man assumes he will fail because he fears fail. You're not, because any actual evidence suggests it is inevitable. And so, the paralysis of fear fed by inaccurate thinking quietly sabotages effort before it ever begins. If a man desires to rise above this, if he wishes to harness his potential and shape his destiny, he must cultivate the discipline of accurate thinking. He must become a ruthless examiner of the thoughts that pass through his mind. When that inner voice whispers, "I cannot do this," the response must be immediate and direct. Is this true? Where is the evidence? Or is this merely fear disguised as fact when someone declares it's impossible? That thinking man does not cower. Instead, he asks, by whose authority, based on what data has this been proven? Or is it simply an echo of another man's defeat? Accurate thinking does not happen in isolation. It is nurtured by the company one keeps. Surround yourself with thinkers, those who question, who examine, who demand clarity. Avoid the gossips, the complainers, the merchants of doom who thrive on negativity and spread fear like wildfire. These are the termites of the mind, eating away at the beams of sound judgment until the whole structure collapses. So you can, instead, the companionship of those who value truth, who speak with precision, who do not confuse opinions with facts. There is a reason why every great man, every titan of industry, every statesman and innovator surrounds himself with advisors, counselors, accountants, legal experts, engineers. It is not because he doubts his own intelligence, but because he respects the power of accurate thinking. He knows that assumptions have no place in the architecture of success. Every conclusion must be examined, every belief tested against the reality of facts. I recall another instance, a man who feared that competition would destroy his business. His dread kept him awake at night, feeding him visions of bankruptcy and ruin. But when pressed to investigate, he discovered a very different truth. His competitors' customers were dissatisfied, frustrated with poor service, and searching for an alternative. What he had perceived as a threat was in reality a golden opportunity. His shift from fear-based assumptions to fact-based thinking transformed his anxiety into action and his action into prosperity. That is the magic of accurate thinking. It converts obstacles into opportunities. The moment clarity replaces confusion. Yet the influence of accurate thinking extends beyond mere success. It is the foundation of integrity. When your mind is clear, you judge fairly, you act wisely. You make decisions that are not only effective, but just. You build relationships grounded in truth. And those relationships become the scaffolding of a reputation that will carry you further than any amount of capital or cunning. Mark this well. Reputation, once damaged by reckless thinking or dishonest action, is a currency that is nearly impossible to fully restore. Your mind must be guarded like a fortress. Let no falsehood breach its gates. Admit no unchecked fear into its halls. Demand accuracy of yourself with the same rigor that an architect demands precise measurements before laying the foundation of a mighty building. A single error in the blueprint, a mistaken assumption, a lazy conclusion, an unfounded fear may seem trivial in the moment, but can lead to catastrophic failure down the line. Imagine a builder who lays stone without measuring, trusting guesses in hearsay. His structure might rise, but the first strong wind will bring it crumbling down. The man of destiny understands that his thoughts are the blueprints of his life. As the builder checks every angle, every length, every weight, so must the man intent on success check every thought before he acts upon it. So let this be the standard you live by. Measure your thoughts, examine them, demand truth. Do not let the idle gossip of others or the whispering doubts of your own mind dictate your future. For as surely as the sun rises, the man who builds his life on the solid rock of accurate thinking becomes unshakable, immovable, and destined for greatness. The law of compensation: you reap exactly what you sow. There is a law that operates with absolute certainty, as unchanging and universal as the law of gravity itself. This law governs the flow of wealth, success, and opportunity in every corner of the world. It is simple yet profound. You will be compensated in direct proportion to the value you provide to others. No exceptions, no loopholes, no favoritism. It does not concern itself with your background, your intentions, or how desperately you desire success. It cares for one thing only. What service are you rendering? And how excellent is that service? This law is neither cruel nor kind. It is simply fair. It operates without emotion, rewarding those who understand it and penalizing those who ignore it. You may wish for wealth. You may hope for success. You may believe that luck, fate, or destiny will one day bless you with a windfall. But unless you are actively engaged in rendering service, real service, valuable service, you are waiting for a harvest in a field where no seed has been sown. Everywhere you look, the truth of this law is visible. The man who offers little value to the world is often the loudest in his complaints. He rails against unfairness, against the economy, against circumstances. He convinces himself that the world is conspiring to hold him back, never pausing to consider that his reward is perfectly aligned with the value he has chosen to give. Meanwhile, the man who commits himself daily to the question, how can I serve more? How can I solve bigger problems? How can I improve the lives of others? This man finds that reward does not need to be chased. It chases him. And reminded of a cobbler I once knew in a small, unremarkable town. His shop was modest, tucked between larger, flashier establishments. His shoes were never the cheapest, nor did he try to compete on price. Instead, he competed on quality. Every stitch, every sole, every repair was done with precision and care. He knew his customers by name. He listened to their needs. He remembered their preferences. When a pair of shoes came into his hands, it wasn't merely footwear to be patched up or polished. It was a trust placed in him, a relationship to be honored. As years passed, his humble shop grew. His sons entered the trade. His reputation spread beyond the borders of the town into neighboring counties. His name became synonymous with craftsmanship and integrity, and with that growing reputation came growing prosperity. His wealth expanded, not because he had set out in pursuit of money, but because he had made a relentless pursuit of excellence in service. This is the secret so many fail to grasp. The world owes you nothing, not a dime, not an opportunity, not a single favor. but it will pay you handsomely, sometimes beyond your wildest imagining. In direct proportion to the problems you solve, the comfort you bring, and the excellence you provide. It does not matter whether you are a cobbler, a merchant, a laborer, a teacher, or the head of a great enterprise. The law holds true at every level in every field. Consider the farmer. He does not walk into a barren field in spring, plant nothing, and then demand a harvest in autumn. Nature laughs at such folly. And yet, how many men go about their lives expecting prosperity, expecting opportunity, expecting respect, when they have sown nothing but complaints, excuses, laziness, and mediocrity? They wander through life bewildered, embittered, asking, "Why does nothing good happen for me?" Never once stopping to examine the simple truth that they have given nothing of meaningful value in return. The man who understands this law wakes each day with a question on his mind. How can I become more valuable? How can I refine my skills? How can I render better service? How can I make my customers' experience smoother? My product more useful? My teaching more impactful? My labor more precise? For he knows that excellence does not merely magnify compensation. It guarantees it. It is also important to understand that compensation does not always arrive in the form you expect, nor does it always arrive on your timeline. Sometimes it comes in the form of opportunity. An introduction, an offer, a sudden opening where none was visible before. Sometimes it comes as knowledge, an insight, a discovery, a skill that transforms everything. Sometimes it appears as relationships, alliances that seem minor in the moment, but later bear fruit in ways no one could have foreseen. But come it will. The law does not forget. The law does not fail. I have watched men who dedicated themselves to service for years without visible reward. Their peers mocked them for working harder than the compensation suggested was wise. But then one day, a door opened, a contract was signed, an idea turned profitable, and what seemed like sudden success was, in truth, the compound interest of years of sowing value into the lives of others. Their rewards arrived not by luck, not by favor, but by the relentless accuracy of a universal law that cannot be cheated, nor hurried, but neither can it be denied. Understand this deeply. Your rewards are always a reflection of your service. If you wish for greater wealth, provide greater value. If you wish for respect, become someone whose integrity and contribution demanded. If you wish for opportunity, become the kind of person to whom opportunity must naturally gravitate. Increase the quality and quantity of your service, and the compensation, whether it be in money, influence, reputation, or fulfillment, must follow. It is not a question of if. It is a question of when. This is the great equalizer. It cares nothing for where you were born, what your parents did, what misfortunes may have plagued your past. The only question it ever asks is this: what service are you rendering, and how excellent is it? Answer that question with your life, and the world will answer back with reward. The purpose of failure, the hidden gift failure, my friend, is not your enemy. It is not the dark shadow that stands in opposition to success. Rather, it is the stern but faithful teacher that life appoints to every man who dares to rise above the ordinary. It is the schoolmaster of greatness, the instructor whose lessons are often harsh, yet always indispensable. No man has ever walked the path of success without first passing through the gates of failure. Look behind every triumph, every great accomplishment, and you will find a trail paved with setbacks, missteps, and disappointments that serve not as barriers, but as building blocks. There does not exist a single success story in this world that is absent of failure. None. Every fortune built, every invention crafted, every masterpiece created has been preceded by moments of defeat, of doubt, of collapse. But those who ultimately succeed are not the ones who avoided failure. They are the ones who understood its purpose. The man who fears failure, who trembles at the thought of getting it wrong, is the man who lives small. He tries little, risks nothing, and as a result achieves nothing. His life becomes a quiet surrender, a retreat from the very experiences that were meant to forge him into something greater. Contrast him with the man who understands failure for what it truly is: a messenger, a mentor, a necessary part of the process. This man does not seek failure for its own sake. Nor does he relish the sting it brings, but he embraces its arrival, knowing that within its discomfort lies the wisdom that success demands. Failure is not about pain, it is about perspective. It delivers lessons that no book can teach, no speech can impart, no second-hand story can fully convey. It is a curriculum tailored specifically to you, designed to strengthen what is weak, refine what is crude, and sharpen what is dull. I am reminded of a young inventor, whose story remains etched in my mind. Bright, eager, and full of ambition, he set out to create something revolutionary. His first invention failed. So did the second and the third. The fourth collapsed, and the fifth drained what remained of his finances and strained his reputation to the breaking point. Any reasonable man might have looked upon these mounting defeats as a clear sign to stop, to surrender, to conclude that perhaps he was not cut out for success. But this young man saw something different. With each failure, he examined what went wrong, he dissected his mistakes, he adjusted his approach. His sixth invention not only succeeded, it changed the world. It solved a problem so profound that his name became synonymous with innovation. And his fortune was secured. He later confessed something striking. Had my first idea succeeded, it would have ruined me. I was not yet the man capable of handling success. His early failures were not punishments. They were preparation. You must understand this truth deeply. Failure does not say stop. It says learn. It does not declare, you are not good enough. It asks, are you truly committed? Are you prepared to refine, to adapt, to grow into the person capable of holding the success you seek? It is not a verdict, it is a question. A challenge posed not to discourage you, but to test your resolve and your willingness to evolve. Consider the child who learns to walk. He does not curse himself when he falls. He does not decide that walking is beyond him, simply because the first attempt or the 10th ends in a stumble. No, he rises. He tries again, and eventually walking becomes second nature. And the memory of falling becomes irrelevant. The process that seems so natural and unquestioned in childhood is somehow forgotten in adulthood, where the fear of looking foolish, of failing, of not getting it right on the first attempt, keeps men rooted in hesitation. Failure, when viewed correctly, is one of the most honest mirrors you will ever face. It reveals where your weaknesses lie. It shows which assumptions are false, which strategies are flawed, which parts of yourself need strengthening. It strips away illusion and forces clarity. It does not come to bury you beneath its weight, it comes to elevate you. If you are willing to climb. There is only one true form of failure, and it is not the kind that comes from falling short. The only real failure is the failure to learn. The man who tries and fails, learns, and tries again, is a man marching steadily towards success. No matter how many times the world knocks him down, he knows that every fall is another lesson, another refinement, another step forward. But the man who tries, fails, and quits, he has written his own defeat. He has declared through his surrender that the discomfort of learning is more than he is willing to bear, and in that moment failure becomes permanent. So when failure visits you, and it surely will, do not shrink from it, do not curse it, or pretend that it means something it does not. Instead, welcome it as you would a strict but fair teacher. Study it, examine what it has come to reveal. Ask yourself, what is this here to teach me? What truth have I ignored? What flaw must I correct? What strength must I build? Refuse to leave the classroom of failure without taking with you the lesson it offers. Then rise. Rise stronger, wiser, more prepared than you were before, because success is not given to the man who avoids failure. It is given to the man who has been shaped by it. It is given to the man who knows that failure is not a tombstone, but a stepping stone, not the end of the road, but the bridge that leads to mastery. And when you rise from failure's embrace, you will carry with you not just the possibility of success, but the certainty that you have become the man worthy of it. The unseen power of desire, the starting point of all achievement. Nothing, absolutely nothing begins without desire. Desire is the spark, the vital seed from which all achievement grows. It is the starting point of every success story. The fuel that propels men to build empires, create revolutions in industry, compose masterpieces and overcome challenges that would cripple lesser spirits without desire. There is no motion, no momentum, no forward thrust. A man without desire is like a ship without wind, aimlessly floating wherever the tide of circumstance carries him. Weak desires produce weak results. Life responds not to casual wishes or passing hopes, but to the strength and intensity of one's desires. A man who merely wishes for success, who toys with the idea as something pleasant but not essential, will find that the world does not bend to his whims. But the man who possesses a desire so fierce that it consumes his thoughts, stirs his emotions, and becomes the central focus of his existence, that man becomes unstoppable. His desire is a force that moves heaven and earth, bending obstacles, aligning circumstances and drawing opportunity into his orbit like iron filings to a magnet. Consider every man who has risen to greatness, and you will find behind his achievements an unrelenting burning desire. It was never mere luck, never accidental. Take Andrew Carnegie, for instance. His pursuit was not simply for wealth, but for the mastery of an industry, and later the ability to distribute his fortune wisely for the betterment of society. His desire was clear, unwavering, and powerful enough to drive him from humble beginnings to unimaginable height. Think also of Thomas Edison, whose contribution to the world is so immense that it is hard to imagine modern life without his inventions. Edison did not simply dabble with the idea of electric light. He was possessed by the desire to illuminate the world, to replace darkness with light in every home and every street. When confronted with failure, not once, not twice, but over 10,000 times, he did not falter. His burning desire was the force that made him rise from each failure, adjust, experiment again, and continue until success was no longer a possibility, but an inevitability. Desire is not mere wishing. It is not idle longing, nor is it the fleeting thought of, "Wouldn't it be nice if?" True desire is a white-hot obsession. It occupies the mind day and night, refusing to be ignored. It weaves itself into every thought, every action, every decision, until the goal becomes as necessary to the man as air to his lungs. It transforms from something external, something he hopes for, into something internal, something he already owns within his spirit before the physical world has caught up. The great tragedy is that most men never move beyond lukewarm desires. They flirt with ideas of success, wealth, love, freedom, but they never commit. Their language betrays them. They say things like, "It would be nice if I could start a business. It would be wonderful if I were wealthy. Maybe one day I'll write that book." But desire framed as a vague wish holds no power. The universe does not respond to maybe. It responds to, "I will have this, I must have this, and nothing will stop me." So how does one cultivate such burning, consuming desire? It begins with clarity. You must make the goal definite. A goal half-formed is a goal half-dead. Vague ambition produces vague results. Write the goal down. Not once, but every day if needed. Let the ink serve as a contract between your conscious mind and your deepest self. Visualization follows. Picture the goal vividly. See yourself living in its fulfillment. Let the image become so real in your mind that your subconscious cannot distinguish it from reality. Speak it aloud. Affirm it daily. Let your voice carry the conviction of your intention until your own ears begin to believe it more than your doubts ever could. Surround yourself with reminders, photos, words, symbols that keep the goal alive in front of you. Your environment must feed your desire, not dilute it. Desire, once cultivated to this burning point, possesses a power that borders on the miraculous. It transforms what once seemed impossible into what becomes inevitable. It feeds strength into a weary body when the road grows long. It lends courage when doubt whispers cruelly from the shadows. It breathes persistence into your bones when the world places obstacle after obstacle before you. With burning desire, failure becomes temporary. Delay becomes an annoyance, not a defeat. Every setback becomes nothing more than a lesson, a necessary stepping stone on the path to fulfillment. Without desire, No plan, no matter how carefully crafted, can survive. Without desire, discipline weakens, focus wavers, and commitment dissolves at the first sign of resistance. But when desire burns brightly within a man, no obstacle stands a chance. Plans may change, methods may adapt, but the outcome remains certain, because the fire within does not permit surrender. Desire is the beginning of greatness. It is the pulse that starts every endeavor, the force that carries it forward, and the anchor that keeps a man steady when storms rise. The man who truly desires, with intensity, clarity, and unwavering commitment, cannot be denied. The world, whether willingly or reluctantly, must make way for him. So understand this with all the depth your heart can hold. If you desire weakly, life will offer you crumbs. If you desire mightily with the total commitment of your mind and spirit, then prepare yourself, for life will yield to you in abundance. You will find that the barriers were illusions, that the impossible was merely a word for the uninspired, and that the life you once dreamed of begins with this one simple but profound truth. Nothing begins without desire. The principle of action, thought alone, is not enough. Let me state it as plainly as the truth deserves. Thoughts are powerful, but action is king. Without action, the grandest desires, the strongest beliefs, and the most vivid imagination are little more than dust in the wind. They swirl within the mind, beautiful yet useless, until they are given shape through movement. The bridge between dreams and reality is not built from intention alone. It is constructed step by step from the solid planks of action. The world is littered with the graves of unfulfilled plans and unrealized dreams. Brilliant ideas and genius strategies and perfect blueprints lie buried in the minds of those who never summoned the courage to begin. Ideas are as common as the air we breathe. The streets echo with the voices of those who say, "I should start a business. One day I'll write that book," or "I have $1 million idea." But the number of those who transform those words into deeds is painfully small. The man who acts imperfectly, clumsily, perhaps even foolishly, will always, without exception, outperform the man who plans perfectly but never takes the first step. I once knew a merchant whose dream was to open a storefront in the heart of his town. He was meticulous. For 5 years he refined his plans, designed every detail, calculated every risk, and imagined every outcome. On paper it was flawless. But perfection became his prison. Each time he neared the threshold of starting, he found one more thing to fix, one more uncertainty to solve. The years slipped by. Meanwhile, another man, one with half the knowledge and perhaps half the caution, decided to act. His plans were simple, his knowledge modest, but his willingness to begin was absolute. He opened his doors, customers came. Mistakes were made, adjustments followed, and in time his business prospered. Why? Because he acted while the other man merely prepared. Action is the great clarifier. What seems complex and theory often becomes simple in practice. The questions that paralyze the planner are often answered within hours of doing the work itself. When you act, you move from the abstract world of guessing into the concrete world of knowing. What works? What doesn't? What should be adjusted? These answers do not arrive while sitting in contemplation. They arrive when your hands are dirty, your feet are moving, and your mind is engaged in the reality of effort. Moreover, action is not just clarifying. It is magnetic. A man in motion attracts resources, ideas, allies, and opportunities that remain invisible to those who wait. People are drawn to momentum. Investors back those who are already building. Helpers offer hands to those already climbing. Customers buy from those who are already selling. Fortune, it seems, favors not just the bold but the busy, the doers. There is an undeniable truth in the natural world that mirrors this law. The river does not wait for the perfect course to reveal itself. It does not sit atop the mountain debating which path is most efficient. It begins. It flows. It meets obstacles and carves through them, over them, or around them. The path emerges because the water moves. So too must it be with you. Waiting for the perfect time, the perfect plan, or the perfect conditions, is the luxury of men who are content to watch life from the sidelines. The man who wins understands that the road appears only as he walks it. Perfection is not the prerequisite for starting. It is the result of iterating, learning, adjusting, and refining along the journey. Your first effort will be flawed. Accept it, welcome it. Let your imperfections teach you, guide you, and shape your path forward. The greatest successes in the world did not emerge fully formed. They were chiseled into existence by relentless action. Understand this fully. Life does not reward the man who dreams the biggest. It rewards the man who moves. Thought is the spark. Belief is the fuel, but action is the engine. Action transforms the unseen into the seen, the imagined into the real. A mind filled with vision, but absent of motion, is a tragedy of wasted potential. So wherever you stand right now, whether at the beginning of a dream, at the edge of a decision, or in the middle of uncertainty, the answer is simple and always the same. Start, move, do. Use what you have where you are. Let the path unfold as it must. Let the lessons meet you along the way. For while thought initiates and belief empowers, it is action and only action that transforms. Remember, the world is simply reflecting back the thoughts you hold most often. Focus on fear and fear expands. Focus on growth, abundance, and possibility. And life begins opening doors you never imagined. This isn't magic. It's the natural law quietly shaping every outcome in your life. So guard your mind. Choose your thoughts wisely, because the truth is simple. What you focus on, you attract. Now the choice is yours. What future will you plant today?